I am always so excited for Sitting with the Elders interviews because it's a time to spend with our elder statesmen and stateswomen, listening and gleaning from their life's journeys. And today's interview is going to be another epic time as I have the privilege to speak with, where do I begin to describe him from? He's described as a doyen in the advertising marketing industry, one of the people that helped build what we have today. He's also former chairman of Zenith Bank. He's a man of many parts, a man of character, integrity, a family man, and a man of faith. I am speaking with Sir Steve Omojafor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thanks for having me.
It is our privilege, sir, at the age of 78, to sit with you. You're looking almost like you could be 60.
Wow.
Yes, we are not flattering you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
I'd been thinking about this and asking, where do I begin? But like the famous film says, let's start from the very beginning. Yeah. It's a very good place to start. I know that you were born on the 6th of January, 1946, in Isaleko, in the very heart.
Actually, in Obalende.
In Obalende. Ah, okay. In the very heart of Lagos. Yeah. How would you say your beginnings shaped you and formed you?
Right. Growing up in Obalende was something magical, if I may use that word. Here we were in an environment so serene.
Wow.
We were a group of young people growing up to get into the primary school, for instance. My old primary school was in Lafiaji, St. Matthias Catholic School, Lafiaji. I had contemporaries at that young age. Some were in some government school at Olowogbowo. Some were at some primary school in Isaleko. So we were all just split around the place. We were all going by foot, actually. And it was so good, all well dressed up. You had your portmanteau made of metal on your head, and we just told stories. When we were lucky, we found scholars' bus. These buses in those days painted in yellow and red stripes, and it was for students or scholars. They call it scholars bus. It was for free. Oh. Yeah, it's just that it was always so jam-packed, always so full, that if you don't get it in time, you've missed it. And so you do your trip to school by foot, and it was great fun. Lagos was clean. The Obalende we are talking about, we had the Woles who come round carrying this thing at the back, you know, with nozzles to ensure that your gutter was clean. You know, they came into your compound and checked through the entire compound to ensure that you were not harboring anything that shouldn't be there at that time. I mean, if you had things like chickens or hens or dogs in the house, they're going to inspect them, examine them. If they found them not fit to be there, they are carted away immediately. You know, and our parents were also closely knit to each other. If you went to a neighbor's house and you misbehaved, you'd be flogged right there.
By the neighbor?
By the neighbor, and they'll send a message to the house that they have just done this. And your mom will say, thank you so much. You know, so discipline was very pervasive. Everything was good. Our teachers were all, it's like teachers dropping from heaven to take care of children. There were no misgivings. Nobody was cheating anybody, nobody was maltreating anybody, but if you misbehaved, you got your punishment. Going to primary school was great fun. And then from there, from St. Matthias, I got into Holy Cross School. We had this 1 year we call prep class. After your primary school, another 1 year to prepare yourself for the secondary school.
Before you go to secondary school. We didn't have that in my time.
No, they didn't. They didn't involve. So I did that 1 year in Holy Cross, and from there into St. Gregory's College.
But is there one particular thing you think really shaped you in your formative years? Maybe between those ages, teenage years, just before your 20s. Is there one thing you think really shaped your upbringing?
Well, I think parents' influence was extremely strong. They had to know where you were at any given time. If you had to go after school to anybody, to anywhere, you told them in advance. If you had to, if one of your classmates was having like a birthday party or anything in their homes, you got to tell them well in advance. I remember my dad would say to me, when is it going to finish so you can come and pick you up, or stuff like that, So you were never left wandering the roads or streets at times that were not supposed to be there, unholy hours, so to say. So parents' influence was extremely strong. Then the Catholic school influence was also extremely strong. There was a lot of discipline in school. But of course, no teacher flogged you for the fun of it. But if you didn't, keep to the rules and regulations, you got punished. And we all submitted ourselves. That is not saying that occasionally you don't find one of us who was going to
flaunt the laws.
Yes, that's right. Yes. But then he was made a good example for us to ensure that, you weren't going to go that way too. So then, of course, we were introduced to worshiping in church at a very early stage.
From when you were in Catholic school?
Yes, from my primary school, which was also a Catholic primary school, St. Matthias. So you were introduced into church going, you were introduced to morning prayers, evening prayers. So that was secondary school, and then higher school, like we used to do in those days. And after higher school, it was now moving on to the university.
But 3 things I just heard you say that really marked your childhood was parental influence, discipline, and faith.
Yeah.
Looking at today's society, how do you think those 3 things have evolved? And I was very, curious when you said back in the day, if you went to a neighbor's house and the neighbor beat you, they will tell your parents will even thank them for beating you.
Thank you.
Now, if you go to a neighbor's house, they must not even touch you. And if they beat you, your parents can go and meet the neighbor to say, who sent you to beat my child? And do you think that has sort of changed even the way society has evolved?
In fact, you are even lucky if you have a neighbor that you can just walk into his or. And right from the time we left school and got working, you'll be lucky to find a neighbor who you can leave your house in the evening, walk across, chit-chat, share a meal or something. These days, it's so strict now and so constricted now that even children, they are all in their homes. Maybe when they are in school, they can mix up with other students, other children, and then make friends. You discover that you tell your, 8, 9-year-old, and tell you, oh, the only friend I have lives about 1 mile away from here. And that is friend picked up from school.
Yes.
You'll be very lucky to just find them next door or thereabout.
Wow.
you know. So, okay, parental discipline, I think still continued. But then, during our own time, our parents didn't have too many things doing on the street. They went to work, and at the end of work, they are back home. And these were work or business that had time attached to it.
That's true.
They knew they had to be back home at certain time. They didn't go from there, go this way. By the time you're back home, it's 10 p.m. and you'll be lucky if you have anybody taking care of these young children. You know, so the difference then was that I think our parents had more time for us.
Okay.
They had more time.
Very true.
And the chase for money and wealth wasn't that strong at that time. Whatever we had, we made the best use of it. So what you discover is that most times we are home with the parents. Most times, you know. And of course, we all went to church together. And wherever they were going to after church, you had to be with them, you know. So you learned so much from your parents. You learned so much from their own friends, you know, who you probably have ended up making a friend or two, you know, from them. So, and they were very comfortable that they knew where you are at any given time. And because at home, the discipline has been imbibed inside you, you didn't go out and mess things up at all. Somebody once asked me, did everybody in your group end up like you? No, certainly not. No, they didn't. They didn't. And it's not for the lack of trying. Something happens along the way. It could also be parental failure. It could also be suddenly after a primary school, you you have the misfortune of joining one or two friends who did not quite walk the straight line, and you end up being gradually, you know. And so suddenly you used to be about 5 or 6 who used to do things together, and by the time you know it, 2 of them have dropped off. And that also affected their school attendance and also affected how they ended up after school. So in Obalende and Lafiaji, where I grew up jointly.
And let me just quickly point out that, you know, the mindset that we have when you say Obalende and Lafiaji today is not how it was back in the day.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. For instance, Obalende in those days, by the time you go past, I don't know if you know the geography of that area, all these bridges were not there and all that. By the time you walk past the police barracks in Obalende and cross into Louis Street, you are now in Lafiaji.
Oh, so it was just that,
That McGregor Canal. That McGregor Canal separated Obalende. Then of course Obalende separated from Ikoyi.
Yes,
Right. Okay. The borderline there used to be Kefi. You know, from Kefi going on, used to be Ikoyi, to Obalende, then Lafiaji. So when you are in Obalende, you know that when you get into Lafiaji, you've got to be more careful.
Okay, so it was still a bit rough at the time?
It was, yes. Yes, got to be more careful. But then, my school was in Lafiaji. So I couldn't run away from the entire area. But the truth is, you knew where to draw the line. You know, you knew where to draw the line. And you have to be friendly. You didn't want to carry the air of, I'm superior. I'm better than these people. No. We all had to level up. But at certain junctions, you know when to pull back a little bit and when to give it all out. But it was good. We all, for those who couldn't continue like after secondary school, and we who continued, we tried very hard to keep that friendship going. I was saying in an interview recently that when they say, oh, area boys.
So in those days, they were area boys?
Yes.
Oh,
in fact, they grew from there to become what they are today.
Okay.
Now, in Lafiaji, we call ourselves, we call Lafiaji area. Obalende area. Okekpopo area. Tokumbo area. Okay? Nothing negative. No, nothing negative. We were never, we didn't feel ashamed to be known as area boys from Lafiaji.
Oh, so it was just because it was Lafiaji area. So that was area
where
boys.
the area boy name came from. Okay? But then, as the years progressed, and as the number of dropouts increased, they gave it a new meaning altogether. Suddenly, the area boy which you were happy to be part of now was becoming something extremely negative. Something that people would rather, in fact, get away from. You know, they became those who would just congregate in dark spots, you know, molest passers-by, develop into pickpocketing and all that, harassment and what have you. And because some of them voluntarily would just leave home. And for parents who were not educated, who didn't have the wherewithal to really instill the discipline, it's like they let them go. Go out when you want to, come back when you want to. You know? I mean, I can remember then, if the police picks you up, good riddance, good luck to you. You know? So we, in quote, who were out of that group, we became more self-conscious, we became more careful. But then, of course...
So the gap widened.
It widened. So it was a mixture
yes.
of everything. You probably may not say this for those who grew up in Ikoyi proper. We were like neighbors to the Ikoyi crowd. Okay. Now, back in school, for instance, back in Lafiaji and St. Gregory's College, a lot of our, some of our classmates were the Ikoyi group. Okay? They were brought into the school, long cars and all that, and but as soon as they come down from those cars, we level up. Until after school again, they come to, you know, take you away. And some of them would rather be with us. Okay? Would rather be with us than making friends from Ikoyi proper. Because here we were a mixture of average living,
high living,
low living, but there we were. For we like the middle class sort of, our parents, this sounds funny, gave us more time, more opportunity, never made you want something. Once it's something, you know, they struggled harder.
Oh, wow.
Okay, they struggled harder to make you into what you want to be. They paid more attention. okay? If your parents are needed in school, they did more of that than the very big Ikoyi crowd that probably send somebody to go and represent me in school. No, our parents were there. Listen to the principal, listen to the housemasters and everything. So for me, there was quite some advantage for me growing up where I did. Because it gets to a stage, your Ikoyi crowd are depending on you for a lot of things, even school work. Yes, even school work, So that's how we all just, by the time we got into the university, for instance, it was all leveled.
And this was University of Lagos?
This was Lagos
where you studied
University.
mass communication. And let me just,
yes.
It's not a boast, but I'm also an alumnus of mass communication, University of Lagos.
Congratulations, my dear.
Thank you,
congratulations.
Sir. This is decades apart.
Yeah, well, the tradition continued.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the tradition continued.
Yes, sir.
That's good. I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you, sir. Yeah. So you did university and you finished and you got into Daily Times at 1972, right after.
Yes, no, the Daily Times, let me just speak a bit about the Daily Times.
Yes, sir.
Right from my, let me say higher school once again. Right from my higher school, that is HSC, right. There were 2 years that made you senior in the school. When you're in the higher school class, a big boy, the senior prefect comes from your group, the fact, and there's a lot of respect. A lot of respect for people doing higher school. Now, I had this habit, because I was an art student, so I had this habit of reading so much. And get into the library, pick up the few daily newspapers. I was always interested in this column, Letters to the Editor.
Oh.
And every evening I see a story that interests me or didn't quite understand or I didn't believe what it was, picked up my pen and wrote letter to the editor. And surprisingly, most of the letters were published.
Your letters?
Yes.
When you were in high school?
When I was in high school, yes. When I was in high school, HSC. And I will, maybe not up to one page, it's just a couple of paragraphs. And I put my name, Steve Omojafor, St. Gregory's College. I had to be published. The principal got to start finding out that most time that I open, anytime he opens up the papers, he goes to letters to the editor to see if Steve is there, And suddenly I found myself becoming editor of our magazine in the college. Okay? So, and that the trend continued. When I got into, before I went into Lagos University, I would just leave home, go into the Daily Times in Kakawa. You know where Kakawa is?
Kakawa's been Lagos Island?
Yeah, Lagos Island. Yes. That's where Daily Times used to be. So I walk in there and walk straight to a reporter or an editor, and I became a friend to the house.
So, sir, if I remember, this is before you got into university.
Before I got into university.
You were already going.
I was just visiting.
And by that time, you were already a publisher, technically.
Well, I was an editor.
You were an editor.
Let's say an editor in the, yes. Because I edited the school journal with a team, of course, for about, in fact, I think right from my fourth, fifth,
like how
and
old
sixth
were
year.
you at this time?
At this time, 17.
So what gave you
18.
that mindset?
Exactly. I think the fact that I loved literature. I loved history. I did a lot of reading. And then, of course, our library was somewhere you found solace. You want a quiet place, just walk into the library. And then newspapers, a couple of newspapers were always in the library. And I will read, I will take my notes, I will then do my letters to the editor, they get published, and that continued. Then when you left secondary school, you had some 9 months to get into the university. Yes. Because we finished from school I think in December, and the next university session starts around.
Is it normal now? September.
Yes,
okay.
That's right. So you had that period with you. So that was the period in which if you don't find me at home, come to Daily Times. You find me there.
Was this normal for you? Maybe it was normal that time. So maybe your other friends.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't. Okay.
They found other interests.
Okay.
By the way, they found other interests. Some got some little jobs to do. Okay. Now, while at the Daily Times, I was suddenly being given some small assignments, which I was paid for.
This visiting, you were just
Yes,
visiting.
that's right. Because, I pick up interest. We had a popular newspaper called Lagos Weekend in those days. Lagos Weekend. Did you?
No, sir.
Okay. And it carried a lot of interesting stories about marriages, about women, about scandals, That was the soft sell paper for Daily Times. So I made friends with the editor. He will attach me to a regular reporter. So look, take Steve along with you. Wow. So I will go there, I will sit down. There was a reporter whose main area was covering divorce cases in courts, magistrate courts, and
there was divorce in that time.
Plenty. Plenty. So, and there were a couple of courts where all they did was divorce cases, and so juicy. It was very juicy, and we will report it. The husband says this about the wife counters it, and all on and on and on and on. And then we could cover 2-3 stories in one day. Okay? And then we went back to the newsroom, and he said, look, Steve, you do a draft, okay, of one of the stories.
Yes, sir.
And I will do a draft and get them corrected and all that. Surprisingly, when it is published the next day, they will say, story written by Steve Omojafor. Wow. I wasn't the only one that wrote the story, but it was just this encouraging this young. They don't know where I come from, or they don't know my parents, they don't know nothing. Growing up those days, honestly, you could be whatever you want to be. And there was a lot of encouragement around you. So I started reporting. At a point, my editor then would say, okay, look, let Steve cover his own separately. You two do your own. And surprisingly, there was crack jokes that, look, Steve's story is has more content, and blah, 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 And so it was not surprising that I opted for mass communication.
Okay, so that informed.
That was the sequence. So it was not surprising that was all I wanted to do. And I got admission. Now, in my second year, my boss, late Bolabo Ogunsowo, was also at Lagos University. He started a column called University Campus. Sorry, Campus News. Campus News. And where he was reporting things that were happening on campus. The good, the bad, the ugly. So I I came in the following year, he had finished and left. So he passed on the column to me.
You.
And I went on. I was on fire.
Mm.
It went on until the vice chancellor one day said, call me this young man.
Wow.
Who is exposing so much of what is going on.
What were you reporting?
I was reporting part of what was going wrong in the administration.
Oh.
I was reporting on teachers, our lecturers, who did not do rightly what we expect them to do.
Wow.
I was writing about little quarrels between one department or the other, why some departments are not doing too good, why some, and it was very few, far-fetched in between, harassment. It was on at that time. It didn't just become very popular, but it wasn't it wasn't as common then, you know. So one day I was invited by the vice chancellor. I said to the secretary, would you know why the vice chancellor wants to see me? I said, I don't know. Just prepare yourself. When you get there, he will tell you. Of course, I got a bit scared, though. I got a bit scared.
And you had not met him before?
No. We only see him,
yes,
from a distance, you know. And of course, we revered them so much. Oh, yes. So to be invited to the vice chancellors, not even the registrar. Not the registrar, straight to the... So I dressed up properly. I got in there, and I was like a lamb going to be slaughtered. So, and I heard Steve Omojafor, and I said, sir. And he said, relax, relax.
You could see your tension.
Yes. So I said, thank you, sir. He said, well, I enjoy your column.
Wow.
I enjoy your column. And in fact, I make sure that every Friday, it was every Friday paper, every Friday I made sure that Lagos Weekend was on my table. Okay? Because Lagos University became such a big hotspot, and people were looking for news about Lagos University from Lagos Weekend. So I stood up, I was standing, and said, sit down in front of my vice chancellor. I said, sir, I would rather stand. I said, no, sit down. This is a friendly discussion. So we went through it, and he said, good. He liked some of the stories, or some of them are a bit more too personal. Some of them are a bit too personal. And he said, look, I know, Steve, without being told, that you must be a member of one or two groups in this university that publish those hot news about students in hostels, who went out, who didn't go out, who is going out with who, you know, and stuff like that. So I confessed. I belonged to the Alpha Club then, and we had a blogging magazine, you know, and I was part of it.
Wow.
Too, by the way. You know. So I said, look, use that for your local stuff. Let's not transfer it to
university.
Lagos or national, you know. Don't give it national importance, sort of, you know. So we agreed, terms and conditions. And I kept to it, you know. But it was a very, very welcome development. And so naturally, by the time I was leaving Lagos University, they already offered me a job in Daily Times. You know, so that's how I got into Daily Times, without long interviews and all that.
You were a staff since high school?
Yes.
Technically.
Technically, I was there from high school. Yes. And I was there for 2-3 years. And sense of adventure picked me up again. I wanted to do advertising.
So I was going to ask, because you then went to Lintas, then from Lintas founded Rosabel and STB. So I didn't even think you had such a journalistic background. So was it just adventure? Like you heard about, obviously, advertising was part of mass comm. So you just felt, after these 2-3 years, I've done this enough, let me move on. What inspired that?
More of, then I must add this. Daily Times became a bit more political.
Okay.
I was there at the time that Alhaji Joseph was being removed by the military. Because Alhaji Daily Times was so strong. It was like Alhaji Joseph was alternate president to the military, because Daily Times told the stories the way they are, and it was really, really a situation that the military hierarchy could not stand for too long. They took over Daily Times, okay, sent Alhaji Joseph packing. Then suddenly there were camps in the Daily Times. It didn't go down too well with me. You had to watch who you were talking to. It's like we had spies, amongst us. So, and Lintas was just like 5 minutes work from Daily Times. 2 of my friends from my mass comm institute were already working in Lintas. So it was just a question of one afternoon you work. And then I was also very fascinated with their mode of dressing.
Please tell us about that, sir.
In Daily Times, anything goes. We were all just seen as reporters, journalists, not quite the respect that you really wanted for yourself. People came to work with all kinds of dress. And in any case, the first set of graduates came into Daily Times just about 2 years before we graduated.
Okay.
So reporters and journalists then were just people who left school, and just went there and trained to be reporters, and that was it. And then they grew up, Now, Alhaji Joseph was the first entrepreneur in the media that decided we had to start bringing in graduates into Daily Times. So people like me were probably the 3rd set
of graduates.
Yes, who went into Daily Times. Then, of course, our elderly colleagues who had gone through the mill started applying to come to Lagos University to do diploma. Okay? Start off with diploma. Some moved from diploma to doing a proper degree course, but a lot of them were rushing into Lagos University Mass Comm Institute to now get themselves, So at that level, people will almost say to you, you are just a journalist, you're just a reporter, blah, 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 So I liked the dressing code in advertising then. My friends were so properly turned out. So every time, any day we met, maybe we were going for lunch, I just discovered myself in a shirt and a trouser, and I said, no. I could do better than this. So I went there, applied for the job, went through a 3-month interview. I'm telling you. It lasted 3 months, one after. In fact, the form you had to fill was as thick as this. But I wasn't deterred. I thought I wanted a move, and I wanted a move, and I got it. So it took about 3 months later. I joined Lintas, and there has been no looking back.
In fact, advertising took over you.
Completely.
What
that was
it?
The only thing I did until my retirement, nothing more.
So what was it about advertising?
We were seen as the glamour boys then. We were seen as the glamour boys. And the company took time to select those who were going to work in Lintas. They took their time, okay? Even our chairman, as old as he was then, was always well turned out, okay? Yeah, I mean, I had people like Chief Olufalomo, Shegun Ogunbumi, Marco Viagili, and people like that who we met, you know, and all of them were graduates from universities.
Okay, okay,
you know.
okay.
So we kind of blended very well. We took each other for who we are. The environment was so friendly. It wasn't a large organization.
Yes.
We all knew each other. We worked together. We played together. We partied together. Oh, it was a different world altogether.
So what then inspired you to say, I'm going to start Rosabel, or co-start Rosabel?
Yeah, to co-start Rosabel. I was on a training from Lintas to their parent company in the UK.
Okay.
And I spent 3 months on that program. While I was there, I just liked the way the organization, the format with which we were working, the timeliness, the briefing sessions, and I thought, no, I think in Nigeria we could do better than what we were doing. Despite the fact that we had expatriates, you know, with us in Lintas then from the UK. So the idea just struck me that if we got even a smaller outfit, we probably would be more efficient. We'd be more efficient. Because, you know, the larger an organization becomes, some level of bureaucracy sets in.
Wow. So true.
And I was beginning to notice that. I'm very sensitive with the way things are planned out and the way they are done, you know. So it was in the UK that the idea struck me, you know, that Steve, I think, I mean, then I had put in about 4 years in Lintas. Yes, about 4 years. And risen from a trainee, you know, to a group head, you know, within the 4-year period.
Sir.
And I thought I was equipped enough to go and do something on our own, you know. So between me and 2 colleagues of mine, Senator Akin Odusi and Otumba Tunde Adelaja, we got together. We were all in the Mass Comm Institute at the same time.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
We had known each other right from there. So we just meet for a drink on a Friday and we will toss the idea around. Well, for 1 or 2 of us, probably thought, no, we are not ready yet. Let's give it some more time. Okay. Another year, but suddenly, at some point, something catapulted it. And we said, yeah, the time has come. And so resigning from Lintas was one of the most difficult things I had to go through.
3 of you resigned at the same time?
Yeah, not 3 of us were not in Lintas.
Okay.
They were in different...
Okay, but you had been in Mass Comm together.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly.
Yes.
We were Mass Comm together and we were always meeting. Okay, we partied together, we did things together. The families were pretty close, you know. So
how did this difficult resigning happen?
Yeah, because, I mean, I couldn't go to my chairman to say, I want to resign. I mean, because the love that he showed for me, the friends that I had made, the clients that I had cultivated. It's not the kind of thing you just throw away just like that. I had to rehearse how I'm going to meet my chairman to say I am leaving. Daytimes was easier, okay? Daytimes was much easier. So, summoned up courage, got to the chairman's office, and I stammered a little bit until eventually I found my voice and said, sir, two colleagues of mine and I are thinking of setting up an agency. The man took a hard look at me. Are you serious? And I said, yes, sir. And he kept quiet for a long while. I said, okay, can we move the discussion to another day? We didn't go beyond that on that day. At least he had my intention. So it wasn't something he was going to respond to immediately. So when I got out into the corridor, into my room, everybody was asking, how did it go? How did it go? I said, we called him headmaster then, chairman. I said, headmaster was not in a good mood though. I told him this, I said, oh, okay, is that it? Okay, you can go. We'll talk about it again. For a week, he didn't call me.
Wow.
So I was getting tensed up. He called me the following week, and I got into the office and he said, have you thought very seriously about the action you want to take? And I said, yes. And one thing he said is, out there, it is very cold. It was a very loaded sentence. Out there, it is very cold. Here, we have all grown up as friends and all that. But there, in your new...
cold.
Yes, you're talking about two people who have also had their own different experiences wherever they are coming from. And partnership then wasn't the most popular thing. Very not common. So for my chairman, it was like, are you sure you're ready for what you want to go into? Third question, have you told your parents? I had not mentioned anything to any of them. Because Lintas is an offshoot of UAC.
Oh.
So what my parents know is UAC. So if I went, they told people, they just say, oh, Steve, he works with UAC. So when I sorted out my chairman, very, very reluctantly, it was not a good meeting. I said, okay, look, Steve, if that's what you want to do, but please remember this office is open to you if by any chance you need to come back. Inside me, my prayer was, I pray not to have any reason to come back. It wasn't a good thing to do. Anyway, so next was facing my mom. And said, no, you can't leave UAC.
I mean, who leaves UAC?
UAC was Nigeria. We don't leave UAC. Set up what?
Exactly, to now set up your own what?
What do you want to set up? Oh, what do you want to set up? And it was like, what did your chairman say? The chairman is not happy. My chairman said to me, go think. I do wish you change your mind. And my mother said, yes, it's the same thing with me. So I had to employ some more elderly relations who have done things on their own, and we kind of had a meeting in the house where Mom said, look, then I was 22 28, 29. Yes, I wasn't married. Maybe it was easier to do it when I wasn't married. Because there would have been another
level of...
I tell you. You know? So, but I knew marriage was already on the plan, but it hadn't happened. So very reluctantly, my parents said, okay. You know, my mom was always more upfront when it comes to matters like this. For my dad, more relaxed, you know, civil servant to the core. So he doesn't know anything about setting up businesses and all that.
Your mom had her own business in South
Yes,
she used to sell fabric.
Yes.
So she was an entrepreneur.
He was a textile merchant, so to say. You know, so in fact, I learned part of trading
from her.
You know, I was a bookkeeper, you know. Then Balogun, big place was like split into 4, and each one had a leader. My mom, they call her Mama Balogun, was in charge of, you know, a big section of the market. So she was a big entrepreneur. She was into textiles. She was into all sorts. So I started learning there. So for her, it was easier to convince her. Yeah.
Exactly.
And it was also like, there's always something you can fall back on, if anything, if it goes wrong.
If it goes cold.
If it gets very cold, too cold for you to manage.
Yes.
Yeah. Two of us left our jobs at the same time. The third one, we said, look, you stay where you are. Let us see. It was the youngest of the 3.
Okay.
So you stay where you are. Let us go start off and see how it goes. It was tough. Not as easy as we thought. But then we had this confidence in ourselves that we can make it. Because at that time, they were just the big agencies, Lintas, OBM, Grant, Graham and Gillis, just about 4 or 5.
Advertising agencies at that time?
At that time.
And so
they were all foreign attached.
So would you say...
Not purely indigenous.
Yes. Would you say you were the first to set up a purely indigenous?
They call it second generation.
I see.
The big ones, foreign owned, first generation. We were second generation. And we were just about 4 or 5 starting off about the same time. And we all were growing side by side. There was a lot of cooperation amongst us.
Oh, really? Not competition?
Was. No serious competition. But of course, you gathered your own business anyway. But in terms of sharing knowledge and experiences and all that, we did a lot of that. And most Fridays, we all met at some club to
the CEOs of all these different
that's right.
generations.
Yes. We all met, and then and we're few anyway. Today, you cannot count. Oh, digitally, it's all over the place. So we had that going on for us. And of course, after a few years, after so many years of Rosabel, the need to expand a little bit caught up with us. We're quite successful, we're quite successful because being smaller in size, we were swifter, okay? You get a brief that would take the bigger agencies 2 weeks
before
to go from table to table. We stayed back one evening till night and cracked it. 2 days later, and said, no, are you sure? Are you sure you're meeting our briefs? And where have you been all these days?
Wow.
So it got big. We expanded and set up STB Macan, And,
so STB was still a collaboration of the 3 of you?
Oh, yes. In fact, the S is for Steve, The T is for Tunde, and the B is for Babalola.
I didn't know. That is a revelation, at least to me.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Oh yeah, it was just
So why did you feel the need to set up almost like a sister company?
Now, the major reason we were having conflict, okay? Like you working for a brewery, for instance, okay? Because of that, you cannot work for another brewery.
Okay. Conflict of interest because of the accounts that you had.
On the accounts, yes. You know?
That's amazing.
And then, so we just said to ourselves, okay, look, Steve, leave us alone. Go and manage this STB.
Wow.
Okay? And we'll still be where we are. You are where you are. Let's see how it pans out.
And how did STB pan out?
STB is another story altogether. At the point at which we were setting up STB, there was no McCann attached to it then.
Yes.
Just STB Communications. Just about that time, a company called Grant, first generation, was having a lot of issues on the Coca-Cola account. And Coca-Cola was managed actually from the UK. So it's like UK agency handling it and using a Nigerian agency to do all the local works, adaptations, new creatives. We're getting more cultural, So we're not taking everything that came from there, to stamp on to the Nigerian consumers. So we were having issues. And the general manager, who used to be in Grant, had returned to the UK and was visiting Nigeria to talk to more agencies with the possibility of moving the business.
Account.
McCann was maybe about 6 months old or less. We had what you call structure. We had little structure in place. But Providence, it just happened that somebody who works with Nigerian Bottling Company in Nigeria calls me up and says, David is visiting from the UK and they are interviewing agencies for Coca-Cola. My first reaction is, how does a 3-month agency
go and be Coca-Cola?
Oh, that's too much now. But on second thought, I shared this with my partners, at Rosabel. I said, no, Steve, nothing ventured, nothing gained or lost. So, meet up with David. So I called up David. We knew David very well when he was working in Nigeria. And David said, oh yeah, Steve, I was told you just setting up an agency. I do not think it's, baby agencies we are looking for. So I said, no problem. Visit me, let's have a drink. And so he had finished his interviews and visitations to agencies, just planning to leave when this call came. So he came to see us. We were still knocking things here and there, setting up departments. We spent an hour thereabout together. And at the end of the day, he said, look, Steve, for old time's sake, and knowing your pedigree, where you are coming from, let's not judge you with this
based on this.
You've been around for so long. So he added our name to the list and returned to England. I think about 2 weeks later, a phone call comes that 3 out of all the agencies visited were to come to the UK
Wow.
to present themselves, what they have done, what they are doing at the moment, and of course projections for the future. We had done
What had you done?
very little.
Okay, but something.
Something, but very little. You know how it is. Even some of the big businesses we thought will come setting up the second agency didn't come just like that too. No way. No way. They were taking their time. They were, anyway. So I picked up. But what I did, I went back to my Lintas days and jobs that I was involved in, right from planning to execution. I put them together. Oh. Then, of course, what we had done at Rosabel.
You put it together too.
I mean, I was the client service director, so it was all under me. So put all that together. And then one or two little things. And one of those little things was an airline called Varig, Brazilian airline. I'm sure they were gone before you came onto the scene. Varig is a Brazilian product, and they were flying into Nigeria. And that happens to be one of those that was passed to me from Rosabel. I mean,
to
because
STB, okay.
Yes, I mean,
okay.
yes, they passed from Rosabel to
sir.
STB. And because the crew have just left us high and dry, we had to,
so let's have something to start with.
Absolutely, 2, 3, small businesses for you guys to keep yourself busy. And that was it. So I put all that together. So we got into the UK on a weekend, and I think on a Sunday. My own meeting was to be on Tuesday, and they had seen the 2 others. I was the last to be seen. So I got into the big office, big conference room, and the number of people I found around in the conference room, it's like, what's going on? So you needed to hold on to yourself, all the confidence you can muster.
Wow.
So one of them said, "Oh, are you the 6-month-old agency?" I said, "Yes." What gives you the impression that we want to hand over Coca-Cola to a baby agency? So I said, "Thank you so much. In fact, that I'm standing in front of you does it all for me."
Yes.
If at the end of these meetings I am not picked, you will not know what it has done for me being able to be in front of you big guys, to try to sell myself. One of them picked it up. Oh, okay. Yes, if you say you want to sell yourself, I can understand. Not your agency. Say, well, you got a point. But the agency is manned by people like me. Okay. Then, our tapes were this flat, bulky tape that you plug into, not the, for the ages of CDs and all that. I didn't come. No, they hadn't come. And then I was carrying my artwork portfolio. These days, you put it all on your computer.
On digital.
No. You got to carry your, we called it artwork portfolio. I had to carry my portfolio with me. So I went through, and I made them understand, first and foremost, it's me that I'm selling. Number 2, I'm selling my involvement in high-level management of agencies, starting from this year to now. And number 3, a bit of what I, as a person, as a director, has been involved in. They all listen with rapt attention. So at the end of it all, I shook hands. Even the cup of tea they gave to me, I didn't even touch it. A bit nervous, I must confess, and I didn't have time, the luxury of sipping tea at this kind of crucial meeting. So at the end of it all, we shook hands and I left. They were going to announce the thing the next day by telephone. So that we can start going back to where we came from. So I went back to my hotel and I called the other two guys on the phone.
Wow.
Yeah, so look, so how did it go? Some of them said, no, the question they were asking were that funny, And one of them said, no, you guys have been so formed that changing you to our culture. Can you imagine that?
Oh, wow.
Would be difficult because Coca-Cola is an entity by itself. And our culture and tradition never changes. People who want to work with us
need to conform to that.
Completely. He said that was, and that he didn't find that too funny, but that was the kind of comments that he got. The other one said, well, they talk so much about our ownership structure. They didn't bother me about ownership structure because they knew we were just putting ourselves together. They didn't tell me about culture.
Yes.
The remark was, are you amenable? You know? Are you amenable to things new? I said, yes. And I said, and because we are just starting, we are open to ideas, we are open to new things, we are willing to leave the agency for you to build to your taste. That did it. I made sure I wasn't, any call that I came at that time, I said, no, I don't want to disturb any call until the call from the company came. And it came. You know, about 1 p.m. and just said, congratulations. Please, you don't have to go back tomorrow because you have to return to the office. That was it. You know? So our copywriter then, talking about STV McCann, we use the term, the agency that refused to crawl. So which means, rather than crawl, the agency that didn't crawl. You just...
I mean, 6 months Coca-Cola.
It was big news all over, not only the country, networks around. But I worked my ass out.
I was going to say, how was that for you?
I was burning the candle from both sides. So that sometime we slept in the office for 3 days, just looked for a nearby hotel because we wanted to work all night. The expectations were extremely high. Yeah? But they did one thing. They sent us one of their guys from the UK. So look, that agency, yes, they have potential, but we're not going to. Help. This is the time to build up the structure that we need, starting afresh, sort of. So that was it, and with that came things like Nestle Food, Beecham, you know, Peugeot. You know, I mean, we
really truly flew. You didn't even walk.
No, we didn't. No crawling, no walking.
You just. But what that said is so profound because you know, many times, even now, a young person wants to start off something, and you're looking at all these massive people that have been there for years.
Yes.
And what I hear you say is there's an advantage even in being small.
Being small and starting right. Okay? Because in those days, you are not going to walk into a bank to say, give me money, I want to start a business. What are we talking about? You know? In fact, the money to start off Rosabel came from our parents. Oh, yes. And to my mom, I said, Mom, I knew you would come. I don't know if I can say this in Yoruba.
You can, sir.
Yes. I knew you would come. It was like, hey, and this you're flying around. I fed that business. Oh, not that.
That sounds like a Yoruba mother.
I'm telling you. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
A typical African parent. I told you.
I told you
want to be having dreams.
So sit down. Let's talk about it. I made her to meet my partners. It's known them a bit when we were at university, you know, and he kind of had some trust and confidence in them. And she kind of believed that, you know, you guys can work together, you know. So, yes, so each person had to face his family to get the money with which we started with, you know. In my own case, Mom said, Moya inyo, Emma sold me pada for me. Mom, thank you. I tell you, we agreed, in fact, it was straight from her bank. So my contact was with her bank, not with her. She just gave instruction. But every month, Koma son 500. Naira new. Yeah, it was Naira. Koma son pada every month. You know? By the time I got halfway, she was very happy and said, okay, you can stop. Interesting story. I mean, it's, you know, I do hope such things still happen these days.
I think they do.
Good. But it's just that the requirements are much higher.
Sir. Yes, sir. The environment is much more intense.
Very intense.
It's cutthroat. It's a lot.
Competition is so heavy.
Managing overheads.
Yes. And then getting the right kind of partners, if you want to get partners, because attitude, ideas, orientations are so different.
So, sir, talking about that, your partnership lasted years. It's still now. It's still on.
Yes, till today.
How did you all make it work?
2 or 3 things. Number 1, don't be put off when I keep on insisting the home from which we came from. The 3 of us. Okay? The home from which we came from. They were homes where you accepted whatever your parents said you should do. And I tell you, if Mom insisted all through, don't resign from the Lintas, I probably may not have.
Oh, wow.
So that was the kind of rapport and relationship. Number 2, lack of greed. We sat down and said to each other, choosing a managing director amongst us was easy. We just 3 of us, there was no 4th party, 3 of us. We look at the trajectory of where we are coming from. Akodusi was already GM at his agency. So he had more experience than the 2 of us at the top management level. So it was easy to say, look, Akin, you're going to be managing director. Okay, Steve, you have been in client service all your life. You're going to do head client service. Tunde, media guru. He's always been in media. So it's like we kind of selected each other and each person knew his role.
Roles were well defined.
And then what creates problem in partnerships? Money.
Yes, sir.
Money. For some reason, we all sat, 3 of us sat down. For 6 months, we told each other, nobody is taking 1 kobo out of this place. Our wives will have to take care of our homes.
Did you sit down with your wives to agree this?
After meeting.
After you.
Oh, yeah, we did, though. But thank God, the 3 of them were working. All right?
Oh.
Yes, the 3 of them were working. They were earning something good enough. And then in any case, each person was living in a 2-bedroom apartment. You could manage.
Manage for 6 months.
Yes, for 6 months, because whatever came in was to grow the business, buy equipment. Okay? In those days, you needed, in your studio, you needed cameras, big camera. You needed to produce films, to prepare artwork. So we needed to put whatever was coming, and we managed that for 6 months. We only hired a secretary and 1 creative person. 2.
So 3 of you and 2 other full-time staff. For how long was this, sir?
And that probably went on for the first year. And we managed through. By the end of the first year, we were able to sit down and say, now we could, bring in more people. Oh yeah, we worked hard.
So you people were really the ones doing the work.
Oh no, well,
because I think sometimes entrepreneurs start and say, let's have the office, let's have 5 full-time staff.
No, that's the practice these days. But then we were hands-on. Every client that we had, virtually the 3 of us were in charge. Wow. The creative guy was sitting in there for the briefs to come. We discussed the briefs. He did the creative but we were all working together all through for the first 1 year, and gradually things started happening. So greed. And what I also notice a lot is new entrepreneurs wants to take so much out
From
of
the
these
business.
small starting off enterprises. Something happens in your home, you want to borrow money. Something, no, you want a loan, you want advance. Among the 3 of us, not once did anybody come. We're talking about 40-something years old. Okay, we now retired and the younger ones are. Not once did we have a little talk about money. At the end of every day, we were sitting together, to see what have we done today, what are the plans for tomorrow, and on and on. Of course, the company gradually grew. I had to move out of Surulere onto Ikeja, until eventually bought a property, and So for the ones coming in, I enjoy sitting down to talk to them. I always say to them, you didn't drop from heaven.
Yes, sir.
And become an overnight success. You had to go through the ropes. It's tough, but honestly, once you love what you are doing. Third one, we didn't interfere with anybody's families. Our wives kept out of the business. And it wasn't something that we agreed we wanted to do. Okay? But for some reason, they kept out of the business. Oh yeah, all that kind of little talks that makes you start feeling, oh, are you getting the best out of this or somebody else's? We didn't have that.
Wow.
Until today, it has
Nothing.
never showed up. And then we had trust.
How did you build the trust? Was the trust?
I think it started from a Coca.
Okay.
Believe me. It started from the University of Lagos, where 3 of us were in the same department. We knew each other. I mean, we were close to 30 that went through part 1 to part 3. So you probably want to ask, why the three
of you?
Unknown to each other, we were reading and studying each other. It was not planned. It was not anything you gave any. You know how children grow up and suddenly a little group start forming within the larger groups. We visit each other at home. We got to know our parents. They got to know us, And for crying out loud, when we finished, the 2 of them, one went to America, one went to Britain. I remained in Nigeria. So by the time they came back, I was part of trying to get them fixed up in, in the various places that they were interested in. So at some point, Tunde and I were in Lintas, Akin was elsewhere. Tunde left Lintas, went to Cadbury, so we were all in separate places. But when the time came, we knew exactly who you could partner with, who you could survive with when the chips are down. And honestly, God played a major role. We didn't go wrong. Till today, we're still as tightly knit as when we started well over 40 years ago, And we meet at parties, we're sitting together. And our friends will come to say, Shatuti Bare board meeting, be by me. We are just drawn to each other,
In fact, all I see is that I'm going to sit down with 3 of you, but
yes.
I will talk about that later.
Yeah.
But we must. This just sounds so amazing. It sounds amazing. But you've said so much, and I just want to ask you a question, because in these days, so you see a lot of, us young people say, I don't want to work for anybody. I want to work for myself because I want to be my own boss. I want to just, What to you is really entrepreneurship?
Okay. Number 1, before you even start talking about being an entrepreneur, you must be patient enough to learn the ropes. You've got to, number 1, as much as possible, make up your mind what direction you want to go. Okay? What is it that gives you the kicks, the satisfaction? What is it you think you can do, spend your life, almost your whole life, doing without getting tired or bored? So I counsel them, start off from somewhere. You must learn. Okay, don't jump down. I mean, some people are lucky. Out of university, maybe they have good capital from parents or from the system, and they set something up. For some of them, they don't want partnership because problems will come. So I'm doing it. I'm on my own. I want to do it on my own. I can then employ. When I employ, nobody is sitting down with me asking for equal rights or equal treatment and all that. No, you got to do it equally. No, they don't want that. And that's why the idea of partnership is not the most popular thing in this part of the world. In fact, Lagos Business School started off wanting to look into our partnership as a model of training for younger kids coming into various departments of Lagos Business School. It's not something that comes that easy or cheap. And it's not as if We didn't disagree.
In fact, I was about to say, so did you have, okay, so this sweet story now, were there ever any time that there's a major challenge? Any time anybody say, I'm not even doing it again?
There were challenges, but it never got to a level of any of us saying, like they would, I'm just leaving. We disagree on the jobs. We disagree on principles. We disagree on the way some things are being run. But you know what? A lot of the time, we just lock ourselves up in one of our rooms, the three of us. You air your disagreements. You air the problems you think you are facing. We'll discuss them. At the end of the day, we'll just say, okay, guys, let's go home, sleep over it, come back tomorrow. A lot of the times, tomorrow, we don't get back to it because that heart-to-heart talk that we've had the night previous, and I must also say this, we hardly discussed our problems with our wives. Maybe it's not the right thing to do because we always believed it's something we could sort out on our own.
So why do you say maybe it's not the right thing to do? Because some people might think maybe that brought some drama, that did not... You know, sometimes when women are involved in something, it tends to be more dramatic.
More dramatic. And ideas that did not come into your mind
before.
Yes. You bring it up. And from there, you too, if you get fickle-minded once in a while, could start leaning towards that.
So did you consciously say, we are not discussing this amongst our wives, or it just happened?
It just happened. We never had a situation where you get home, oh, do you know what our kid told me in the office today? Do you know what Tunde said today? Blah, 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 blah. It was easy for us to internalize it, analyze it after that. And by the next morning, and this is being as truthful as it comes, it was cleared. Went back to work. Okay? So this question has been asked a number of times. Did anybody ever say I'm up to now? And indeed for 40 years plus, there was never a reason for anybody to say, I'm done. No. We had other partnerships falling apart.
Oh, yes.
Even during our own time. But the typical example is go and see the guys at Rosabel. When we get into bigger jokes, somebody comes in and says to Steve, don't you know you're a minority here? I said, tell me about it. Akin is it's Yoruba. Tunde is Yoruba. Okay, despite the fact that we are born here.
That you are not
Yoruba.
Not Yoruba. So people used to try to...
Oh, yes, they put that in. Oh, they did. And I said, you know what? I am a Lagosian.
In fact, you are more
and
Yoruba
I'm more Yoruba than even these two people you are talking about.
In fact, the way you've been
they came from wherever.
British and America.
Here. They met me here.
In fact, some people watching might not know, because you've been speaking Yoruba a lot. Yeah. They might not know you are from Agbo, Delta State.
No. Oh, no, in Agbo they say, oh, that Lagos man.
That's what they call
it. Oh, yeah, no, that Lagos man.
They've seeded you.
Oh, yes. And you know, my middle name is Bamidele.
So I was going to ask, were you giving that name in Obalende?
Yes.
Or your
No. I was giving that name in Obalende.
It's hard
and there's a little story to it.
Please tell us, sir.
When Steve was born, of course, I was taken to church and got the Christian name Stephen.
Okay. Right.
Mom, we're living in a place of Bindi we call Agbole Smith. The Smith family. Yes, that's where we lived. So, when Papa Smith was called in when I was being named. He had to be there. So Mom said something like, yes, though you've been born here, Omabawa Dele, which means returning home. Not in Lagos now, home as in Delta State, as in Agbo. So immediately, Papa Smith just picked it up and said, okay, Abayindele, Soruko Timasoni, Bamidele. That was how that one came out.
Wow.
You know, so here we are. It's been a journey that I am so thankful to God for.